All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining. Today we're going to be talking about moving your ERP system to the cloud and steps you can take to prepare that are key to the success of the project. You'll be hearing from Becky Kukis, who's our Director of Business Systems Consulting. Before I hand it over to her, I just want to note the mics are muted at this point, but as soon as Becky's done speaking, we're going to turn the mics on, and anyone who has questions, please feel free to jump in. We'd love to hear from you and answer your questions. With that, I will turn it over to Becky.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so when we're talking about preparing for a cloud ERP implementation, we want to consider all the different factors. And so there's a lot of things that you need to consider with a new ERP, and whether you're going to any system, whether it be the system that we recommend, Acumatica, or any of the other cloud products, or really any ERP, even on premise, when you're implementing, there's a lot of things you need to consider. But with a cloud ERP, there's so many more advantages over conventional on-premises ERPs. They're flexible, they're based online. Your ERP is accessible from any internet connected computer or tablet or phone. And on-premise ERP is kind of limited to your office space and your hardware. And you know, you really want to go to the cloud eventually, right? And it's the best way to go. So to get you prepared for that, there's several questions that you need to ask of your organization, of your people. So we're going to start off by a little bit of an overview. There really are 5 key elements to prepare your organization. Questions that I'm going to provide for you in this presentation. That's a checklist to provide so you can actually define the goals and ask those questions of your users, of your organization, so you pick the best product going forward, but also make so the implementation also goes very smooth. So those 5 key elements are your budget, people, data, your processes, and your infrastructure. Okay? So when we start with the budget, now when you're considering a budget, you're going to be thinking about, well, what is the difference in the software costs of the software itself than what I currently have? What will be the implementation costs? You're going to think about maybe a particular software, how does the licensing agreement work? Like for some systems that's based on number of users that can access the ERP. You want to think about any infrastructure investments needed to support the new system, which in case of a cloud, there really isn't much of an infrastructure investment, except for maybe adding more Wi-Fi routers throughout your facilities or something like that. But other than that, there's really not a whole lot you have to do as far as your infrastructure. You're going to think about things like what integrations that you have or other third-party tools that you would like to integrate with a new system. If there's any customizations that you've developed that you might still need to make sure you have that functionality in the new system. And you also want to consider scalability. Because you're an organization that hopefully is growing, you want to make sure you have a product that is going to grow with you. And one of the things unique to Acumatica is that the licensing is not based on users, but based on a consumption licensing. And we can talk a little bit more about that if you have more questions specifically about Acumatica. But the purpose of this is just to kind of go over what you're going to do no matter what software you choose. Okay, so but for Acumatica, what's nice about it is it does allow you to have unlimited users. And that's really kind of key in today's environment. So when you're thinking of budget, you're wondering what is going to be my return on investment for this project. And we at AccuNet like to help our customers realize what that ROI will be for this project by calculating the true cost of an ERP system over a 5-year period. Because you're going through an implementation in usually the first year, and possibly phases into the project to utilize more functionality, it does take 2 to 5 years sometimes to realize that return on investment. And so when you're thinking about the budget, you're thinking about, well, what are the costs that might be reduced or eliminated by going to the cloud. And so when you're thinking about that, so when you get ready to reach out to the powers to be within your organization, you want to be able to explain to them, by going to this new system, what are some of the things that get reduced. So there's going to be tangibles and intangibles. Tangibles are a lot easier to actually figure out. Like you're going to reduce IT resources. You're not going to have your backups and maintaining servers, because all of that's done in the cloud. You're not going to have new servers or hardware that you're replacing all the time and maintaining. And then you're going to have stuff like intangibles. And some of those are a little harder, a little trickier to come up with, but a lot of those are things like improving your integrations with accounting. Maybe you're going to get a CRM and now you're going to be able to communicate with your customers better. Or maybe you want to improve your compliance compatibility. So what Accunet can do is help you calculate that ROI. So when you meet with your C-suite people within your company and explain that you really want to go to the cloud, that you actually can figure out what are those cost reducing factors. I mean, it could be things like it might increase your sales volume, or your just overall operational efficiency, cash flow improvements. There's a lot of things that could happen by switching to a new system. So now we're going to talk about people, and we were just talking about the C-suite. Now that's very important that you get upper management to buy into this idea of a new system. So important. And so what you have to do is do your homework and actually figure out what kind of cost reductions are we going to have? Are we going to improve mobile accessibility? I mean, this is so important now in today's environment with more and more people working from home and working remote. You're going to now reduce costs for data security, because all of that is being done by the vendor, which would be in this case Acumatica and Accunet. That's something you wouldn't have to worry about anymore as far as security. Right now, like for instance, Acumatica uses Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud service that has never been hacked. It's the most secure environment there is. And so you won't have those expenses anymore. And then you're going to look at probably what's going to really get you there is any of the advanced capabilities within this system. What can it do that your current system cannot? So when you do that, you're going to think about, is this really one of our top strategic goals of our company? And that's what the C-suite is thinking. They're thinking, well, is this really what my goal is, to sell more widgets or whatever it is, but how do you incorporate that into an ERP implementation? So what you're really doing is looking at efficiencies. You want things to be more efficient, and that's how you're going to sell it to those people, right? And so I really believe like continuous improvement should be a top strategic goal for any organization. So then what you'll do is you'll develop a business case. And a business case could be as something as you have your current system doesn't have functionality that you need. Your current system doesn't have good training resources anymore. I mean, it's an aging product and there's no training. There's no formal training out there. You kind of have to learn as you go. You're hiring new people and, things like that. You want to make sure that you document that as part of your business case. You're going to look at your work instructions and your current processes and think, what is not working well in this current system? And so when you're looking for a new system, you find out how you can streamline those processes better and reduce and just make it overall more efficient, right? So you're going to think about, like, where do you keep all your data? Are they actually communicating with each other? Maybe you have a separate CRM that isn't incorporated into your ERP. Well, for example, Acumatica has CRM built in to the ERP. So it's all in one place. And that may be something that you're looking for. There's other things that your on-premise system may not be able to do, and you just want to look for those things and actually figure out a way to integrate to all the systems that you currently use. Then you're going to think, well, have we ever been through an ERP implementation before? Most of our customers I know have been probably on the product for 20 plus years. So it's maybe been a very long time since they've done an ERP implementation. Some of them have added maybe additional companies. And so they kind of know what it's like to implement an ERP system, but it has been a long time. So you may have other people within your organization that know that. And so you want to look for those people and see if they could recall any roadblocks they had, if there was any timeline issues, things like that. What kind of resources are you going to need to get you through an ERP implementation? And as you're searching through your people, you're going to look for your cheerleaders. And I call these people, these are those people that really want to go with a new system. They positively promote the new ERP. They are the ones that are going to help the people who do not want to adopt something new and new methods. They will be your like power users in some cases. And so you're going to look for those people and involve them in early on in the process. They will help the users that aren't eager to change and help train them and get them ready for the product. Then you're also going to have people or certain teams or departments that will not accept or they might resist the change of the ERP. And that's important to invite them in the process also, because if you can find a win for them, like, okay, it's taking you 4 hours to do the bank rec. Now you can do it in 2 in this new system. Oh, it saves me time. Okay, let's go to that new system. So you want to look for those people that are resistant to change, that maybe do a lot in the system, and you bring them in early on. Help them understand how it's going to be really important for them to have these new ways of doing things. That's going to save them time, right? And that will help them adopt the change faster. And you want to make sure you're going to give them lots of training, lots of adequate time to test, the support they need. And you're going to support those people just like you would the cheerleaders. These are the people that really need to be able to accept the changes. I found this little Dilbert joke and I thought it was cute. And I said, here they are hiring a director of change management so employees will embrace changes. Well, I say have the employees embrace the changes by asking the employees, right? Maybe we ask them what they want. So that's why it's important to involve everybody that works in the system in some way in selecting your next system and in part of the implementation process. So you're also going to think about, do you have anyone on your team that is experienced with implementations with a new ERP, with a new ERP? Maybe you have new employees that, switched several systems in the past at other companies. Engage them because they've seen other systems. They know what's out there and they've been through this before, right? So, and you want to engage them early in the process too. Ask them about their experiences. Find out what it is they did to overcome change and issues that they encountered along the way, right? And then you really want to think, how much change can my organization handle at any given time? I think it's real important that a lot of people realize when they're going to a new system and they're changing, that they manage the change. And by managing the change, I'm meaning is you have a current system that does ABC, and you would love to have DE, all these other things, but I can just get by on ABC, and that's phase 1. That gets me live on the product. It's doing exactly what I'm already doing in my current system, but now I can start adding all these new features. So then you got phase 2, phase 3, things that you may want to add on later and actually integrate more with the system. Because that's the way you're managing the change. Because change is inevitable. We're all going to go through changes in life, but this way you can manage it by putting it in phases. And then one of the things you're going to look for is the person in your organization, person or group of people that could be good project leaders, because you're going to need that on your side. You have Accunet and the project managers on this side, but you really need somebody internally that can help manage the project also, who can keep everybody within your organization on track. And Accunet can help you with that, but that is something it really be good to have someone who can really manage projects. Sometimes that could be just the controller of your company because they already manage the closing process and the audit process. Maybe it's an IT person who manages all the other upgrades and other things, and they're very good at managing those projects. So you just find the right person to be the leader of the project team. And then it's important that you get the right people on the team. So for instance, if obviously you're going to involve accounting, so you'll probably have the controller or the accounting manager. If you're going to implement CRM, you're going to want the sales manager, or at least a salesperson to represent that department to make sure the CRM is implemented the way they want. And you're also, if you are field service or project managers or anything like that, anybody that's going to be using the system, they need to at least be a part of it. Anybody that manages a group of people that are going to be using the system. All right, so now we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about data. Now, when going to a new system, it is important to understand that it can be quite expensive to just bring all of your data in your system, the new system. And there's really many times no reason. Like on an on-premise product, for instance, if you're staying with Dynamics SL or whatever on-premise products you have, you can still keep that data. It's not going anywhere. You own that data. You just take that database, put it on a workstation, and it's there if you need to access. And then you're going to really think when you're getting ready to go to the cloud, well, how much data do I really need to bring up into the cloud? 5 years, 10 years, what is it I really need? But you still might want to purge some of your data because maybe you've been keeping it for 30 years and you're like, why do I have 30 years of transactions? Do I ever look at these things? Probably not. And then why store that information when you don't need it anymore? So you can start thinking about purging some of your existing data now to where you only have 7, 10, 15 years of data. And then if you decide when you go to the cloud, you only need 5 years, at least you purged some of your data and you got it a little bit cleaned up. And when you're thinking about data, you want to also be thinking about cleaning up your data. So in some cases, you may have like duplicate vendors, duplicate customers, addresses, things like that. You need to get all that stuff cleaned up. So when you move, you don't bring that unclean data into a new system, right? And then you're going to think about, where does all my data come from? Because when you're getting a new system, your ultimate goal is that everything can feed into your ERP. Because the ERP of today, being in the cloud, is a place where everything can be connected to all of your other systems. That way you have one source of truth for all of the information, whether it be project management, fixed assets, human resources, sales, marketing, all of those things are part of Acumatica, for instance. So you can have, set up an ERP of just say general ledger, accounts payable and receivables, but then you may have all these other systems that you prefer to do your billing out of, or to do all your financials out of, or to project manage. But you still have a lot of tools within the ERP you can utilize. And that way you can have all that data connected. So everybody has that one source of truth. This is also a really excellent time to think about your chart of accounts. You've probably had the same chart of accounts since the company started, or at least when you switch to whatever system you're on now. And it might be a time to really rethink that chart of accounts. Maybe you can, eliminate some of your accounts, maybe reorganize them a different way, because it hasn't 100% worked, but it's been a big deal to change. Well, this is the time to do it when you're getting ready to implement a new system. Then you're going to think about sorry about that. You're going to think about what are your current and future reporting requirements. And this is an example of a report in Acumatica. And you're going to think about what reports you currently use in your accounting system, in your ERP, and maybe reports outside of the system. Some of that information can come directly out of your ERP. And what I like about Acumatica, an example of this picture, is these little blue highlighted fields. If you see those there, that means you can link back to the original data. And that's what I really love about a product that is really fully integrated and fully accessible to all people. It's not just for accountants. It's for everyone in your organization. So if you have reports that you have to process constantly and email to people, or or information that they can't get to, and that you have to constantly, they call you and ask, did you pay this vendor? Did you do that? Well, give them the tools to access it themselves. And then the drill down capabilities. I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, that gives the information to the people that need it. So when you're talking about how much current data you will need in the new system, you've got to realize you're not going to want to move all of your data. Now, maybe you want to move all of your customers or all of your vendors and your chart of accounts and all your financials in summary since whenever. Maybe you do want that. It depends on what kind of reporting you do. An example here, this is like a graphical display of Acumatica this is a dashboard. This is a customer view dashboard. So what happens is when you bring all that data in, it's constantly refreshed. And so you want to be able to give that information in a dashboard format to some of your managers, users, anybody that would be in the system, and they can actually see all that data. So maybe you do want to bring in some history, but you really want to think about how much you really need to bring in. And then you're going to think about, are there any KPIs that we currently need? Are there some key performance measurements that you have in your organization that you constantly are looking at, like receivables type things, or how many of this product did we sell? Those kind of things. Anything that may be pertinent to your company. How are the projects doing? Which ones are making money? Which ones do we lose money? Which ones do we need to? So all kinds of action items, but also KPIs, measurements that say how the organization is going. If you have a membership organization and you want to know how many members have we gained versus lost, well, that's kind of things you could add as part of a dashboard. So there's lots of things you can do, and you want to make sure you have that at people's fingertips. Make it a lot easier than them having to run a special report just to get data that they need really every day. And then you want to understand your processes. Now, this is where it gets down to the nitty gritty, because the data is the data, right? You know what data you need and what you don't. But processes can be a little tricky because sometimes you have processes within your system that aren't working well in your old system, and you want to do something new. So you're going to document your current processes, really get an idea of how you actually do a specific process. In this example here, I'm showing a CRM flow. So there's workflows built directly into Acumatica that will help you analyze the order of when things should be done and who should do them next and that kind of thing. And that's what this diagram explains here. So what you're going to do is figure out what those processes are that are really key to the organization and document those. Okay. And then figure out, and then that way when you go to your partner and say, hey, we're looking for a system that can do this, but it takes us 5 days and we want to reduce it to 3 or 2 or a half hour, whatever it might be. That way you have some guidelines to give to your partner so they can help you find the right product for you. And so I think here, for instance, here's a mapping of a key process. Let's say one of the key important processes to your organization is the requisition flow. So you're going to see here, you got all the steps that a request turns into a requisition. You maybe invite vendors to bid on it. You select a vendor, create the quote, whatever. You got all these steps. And so you want to map all of these different processes. Okay. And it helps because when you're implementing a new system, especially a system that has a workflow already built into it and flows you can build and customize, then you're going to get it the way you want it, right? And maybe you've had to work with an on-premise system that just the flow is the flow. You don't have a choice. You have to do it in these 3 steps. That's the only way to cut a check. You're like, why? When you could maybe make it easier for yourself, right? So you really want to think about how you can optimize your current processes today. That's the key, and that's what's going to get people on board knowing that they're going to save time. They've optimized the process. You're going to also want to think about maybe you have some processes that are already going on within your organization. Maybe you're already, upgrading another thing, your CRM, or you're changing a new process, you're buying a new company, whatever it might be, but you want to be aware of any processes that are being improved at the current time. So you can document those and see where in the process does it make sense? How will this fit into this project of getting a new ERP? And the real key here is how many of these processes can actually be automated. And with the flows in Acumatica, that's in a sense is automating the process. But you can also maybe even do more by, thinking about integrations, bank feeds, billing methods, whatever it might be that you have outside of your systems that you want to be able to automate the process, so you're not downloading something, keying it in, and all of those things that you do, and that you just, why can't it be? There's got to be a faster way. The way I look at it is, anytime you think, is there a faster way to do this? There probably is. So think that way, right? You're also going to look at if you have any current customizations that will need to be implemented in the new system. In most cases, and I think in most cases, a lot of things that you have customized in your current system may not need to be done in the new system because it's already regular functionality in that system. Maybe it's an add-on that you had to add in your current system. It's already regular functionality in the new system, but it's important that you document those, because when you're meeting with partners that are maybe of different systems, whether it be Acumatica and you work with Acunet, or if you're looking at another system, you're going to want to let them know what things you customize, because they might know your current system that you use, but they don't know what customization you have, and they need to understand those. And any good partner would ask these questions. So this is part of the questions and the Q&A sessions that you do when you're starting to implement a new system with your partner. They're going to ask a lot of questions, and that's good. The more questions means they care. That means they're trying to find out and get down to what you really need, right? And then, like I said, you're going to think about all those critical processes, the ones that are so important. Let's say your most critical process is the sales order process, because, hey, you sell a bunch of stuff. That's what you do. So that is your most important process. You want to definitely document that. Now, last but not least, we're going to talk about infrastructure. And infrastructure for a cloud product is really not much to think about, except for maybe you want to make sure you have the high-speed Wi-Fi coverage in your facilities. Let's say you have a warehouse and now you're going to have warehouse employees actually documenting things within your ERP, and they're going to use tablets. Well, you're going to need Wi-Fi. You're going to need good Wi-Fi, and you maybe need some more wireless access points in the warehouse, as an example. But a lot of people are working with, internet from anywhere, so it's not much that you have to do as far as your infrastructure. Another thing you might want to think about when you think about infrastructure is what devices that you currently are using, what you would like to use. Because it's in the cloud, you can use pretty much any device. So now you might have users that go, wow, I love my Mac. I wish I could go onto the accounting system on my Mac. Well, they can't. Or their tablet or their phone. You may have field agents where they've been doing everything with paper, and they send the paper in. Well, now they don't have to send the paper. They could go directly into the system on their phone and do whatever they need to do. Their expense report, their whatever sales orders, whatever it is that you want people to be able to do remotely, or just being able to access easily on any device. So to sum up, we talked about budget, and that's real important because you need to have a budget for this project. Knowing that, I'll give you an example. With Acumatica, it's basically a 3 to 6 month implementation, but we bill that over a year. So what happens is a person can kind of sometimes do this, spread the budget over the first one fiscal year to another fiscal year. And that's nice because it is a big expense to go to implement a new system. It's not like an upgrade. So you want to make sure you have a good budget. And when we're talking about people, it starts at the top and you work your way down and include as many people as you can within reason in the implementation and in the selection process. Then your data, we're talking about data. We want to make sure you get the right data and you clean up your data. And you only bring in the data that you really absolutely need. And then processes. You want to make sure you document all the processes that you do, especially the real important ones, and make sure that you know the new system is going to do what you need, hopefully better. And that should be the reason you're going to a new system. It shouldn't just be because it's time to go to the cloud, but because you can get a lot more out of a new system. And then your infrastructure, which basically is non-existent in some ways. You have any device in the internet, that's all you need. So that's your infrastructure. But Accunet is a company that really provides two services. We have our business system side, which is what we do when we've implemented Dynamics SL and now Acumatica and all of the process improvement projects and all of those things that go with those systems. So that's our business system side. We focus mostly on mid-market companies, mid-range companies. And then our network services side is it's a Columbus, Central Ohio base that mostly handles smaller to medium-sized companies, managed services, computer hardware, all of those kinds of things. It's like your IT resource for those who do not have in-house IT or they want to sub portions of that out. And the two ERPs that we work with is Acumatica, and we've been using that. We've been implementing that product for about almost 10 years now, 9 or 10 years, and Dynamics SL, which we've been using for over 30 years. So who we are at the core is we're problem solvers. Like, we like problems. I like when a customer says, I got a problem. I need the system to do this, this, and this. Well, guess what? I like to solve that. I want to solve that problem. I can't stand hearing people say it takes 2 hours to do something that I know I can fix it and make it do it in 15 minutes. So that's important. And I consider that very customer service driven. I myself was a user for many years. And so I know what it's like to be on that side. And I really want to help my customers be the best they can be. And so we're process improvement focused. We want to also make sure you get your return on your investment when you do, especially when you're purchasing a new product. You really want to get a return on that investment. And that's important because sometimes the questions we'll ask is, if I'm going to spend 5 hours to fix something for you, but it's going to save you 15 minutes a month, is it really worth it for me to spend 5 hours on that for you? And if the customer says, yeah, sure, spend 5 hours on that, well, then, okay, it's worth it to you. But we'll ask those questions. We want you to get your money's worth, right? We really want you to be successful and not just put in systems and processes that don't work for you, right? We want to help you. And our focus mostly is on professional service customers. We have customers that are, manufacturing and construction and some other customers here and there that use Dynamics SL. And we're fluid enough in those environments to know how to, because we know the system really well. But our focus really is on professional services and nonprofits. We have a lot of nonprofit customers also. So what we normally do is when you're ready and want us to really talk about your business processes and your company goals, we'll sit down with you, go over that. We will bring our experts, come on board, come in person if needed, to really look at what improvements you need in your company, right? We want to create ROI by eliminating any duplicate processes. We want to make sure all your users are trained. We want to implement systems that improve your workflow. Ultimately, you're successful, we're successful.